The big news of the day is about Gianluca Scamacca. He's been talking to the Italian press. Now, Fabrizio Romano has done a tweet about it. The tweet has got a couple of lines. I've got the full article here. It's not the best in the world. It's from a big news source, Gazzetta dello Sport, who have run the full article. It's not great. It's in Italian. It runs through a translation, bit of software, I guess. But I think you'll get the general gist. I'll deal with the winners of the books and the stuff at the end of the video. Well, I'll tell you now, it's Haroon and PJ Bradley, but I'll deal with that in a little bit more detail at the end of this video. And let's get to the Scamacca stuff straight away, really, because it ain't great. So Scamacca's spoken with Gazzetta dello Sport, who I just mentioned there, an Italian sports daily newspaper. Stuff that comes out of them, they're not... It's not like caught offside. They've been established for years and years and years. If they print a report with an interview with a player, they've interviewed the player. That's it. You just don't get away with that stuff in big publications like that. The short version is he's basically flirting with Roma, and he's saying it would be a dream to play for Jose Mourinho. As I say, we'll get to the precise comments in a minute, but this isn't great, really. And I think it's not great, number one, that he's said it, and we all like players to speak their mind, but there's speaking your mind. I think there's going too far. I just don't think when you're signed to a club, you don't, talk about other clubs and other managers in this sort of a way. However, it's sort of a bit like Antonio, really, when Antonio spoke out before the Conference League final. Was his timing bad? Yes. Should he have said it? Probably not. Was what he said true? Well, yeah, it was true. What Antonio said was absolutely accurate. That as a striker at West Ham, you feed off scraps. And this plays into something which we all know, and that is that Moyes struggles to get the best out of strikers. At West Ham, the two best forwards he's had have been Arnautovic and Antonio, have both converted wingers. The actual strikers, and there'll be more than the three that I'm going to go on to name here, which I say three, I could do more than three, but let's do Scamacca, let's do Ings, Sebastian Haller and Chicharito. Now, Chicharito might seem like an odd one, but this is a guy that scored goals throughout his career, and it wasn't just at West Ham, so I think it's a good example. Moyes didn't know what to do with him at Manchester United. This is Mexico's record ever goal scorer, scored goals at every level. He wasn't finished when he was at West Ham. It's just David Moyes did not know what to do with him. And if it was just Chicharito, you'd say, OK, that's fine. In fact, forget Chicharito. Let's go back to Scamacca. If it was just Scamacca who couldn't play within David Moyes' system, then you'd think, OK, well, it's just him. The player's got a bad attitude. And he does look sulky. Scamacca does look sulky on the pitch. Thank you very much, Barry, by the way, who went to the Boreham Wood game, and you sort of filled me in on a couple of little bits and pieces that happened there. Look, Ings looked really sharp. Ings got the goal. Scamacca, it was good to see Scamacca there. It was good to see Scamacca play. Don't get me wrong. And he does carry that sort of lethargic, sort of moody demeanour about him, doesn't he? There's no doubt about that. But even if you forget all that and forget body language and forget all that sort of thing, David Moyes just can't get the best out of him. I'm not convinced who signed the player. It's hard for me to... Look, one of two things are either correct. Either David Moyes has looked at him, identified him, signed him and got it wrong. But I find it hard to believe that David Moyes doesn't know his own system. He's so single-minded. He's so sort of stuck and entrenched in what he does. I find it difficult to believe that David Moyes looked at Scamacca and thought, oh, he'll do the job. Because if you remember, we were very much linked with Armando Broja from Chelsea. And you looked at that guy. Okay, he's fast. I think you've got to be fast. That's the first thing of striking David Moyes' system. I think then, of course, you're going to have to be able to pull out wide. And Broja could do that. Even Darwin Núñez, who we were linked with, right, he's not had the best season at Liverpool, but you sort of get it. You look at him and think, OK, you can understand why David Moyes would look at that player and think he fits in my system. I've barely seen a single thing in Scamacca that makes me think he could fit into David Moyes' system. So I found it a strange signing anyway. I guess at this point, it doesn't really matter who signed him. It's wrong. It's not worked out because whilst we played with Danny Ings and Scamacca up top against Boreham Wood, I think it's fair to suggest that that's just not going to happen over any length of time at West Ham. We're just not going to play that way. We're going to play with a single striker. Scamacca's not suited to it. So anyway, let's get to what excuse me. Let's get to what Scamacca has just said. So he said, Roma is home for me. Now, whilst we signed him from Sassuolo, he was at PSV. I believe he came through at Roma's academy. I think that's right. So he said, Roma is home for me and Totti is my idol as a child. What player in the world wouldn't dream of being coached by Mourinho? I'm convinced that Mourinho would stimulate me, and with him, I would improve even more. I mean, that's a... I mean, you can label it as a come and get me, but it's even if you just take it at his word, that's massive praise. He's saying it would be a dream for me to play under this different manager, and he would improve me as a player more than I am now. He said, if I had to return to Serie A, it wouldn't be because I'd failed in England. That's not the case. It would simply be because it would be an unmissable opportunity. It wouldn't be a step backwards for my career. Our league remains one of the best, meaning Serie A. I think it's hard to read that and not think, were there no options for him to go to Serie A? It sounds like he's talking about returning home. Maybe he didn't want to leave. Maybe he wanted an Italian club to buy him rather than West Ham. Either one, it's hard to read that and not sort of extrapolate from it that he'd be happier in Italy and he'd prefer to be under a different manager. He goes on to say, and this is why it's important just not to take that single line. I think Fabrizio Romano's done a couple of lines. Look, it's a tweet. He's got limited writing space. This is the article. I'm not reading you the article. I'm reading his quotes from within it. He said, "Many people don't know, but I played all year with a broken meniscus." It's the thing around the knee, isn't it? He said, then at a certain point, it was impossible to continue, and I ended up under knife. It means under the knife, obviously. Until March, I played 27 games and scored 8 goals. I think I'll go further than that for him. I'd say that they weren't all from the start. He said it could have been better, but it could have been even worse. The Conference League win was a great joy for everyone. It was our passion from the beginning of the season. I didn't play in the final against Fiorentina, it's true, but of course I feel the Conference League is mine. I scored 3 goals in 7 games. When he says it's mine, I think he means he deserves the winner's medal. He feels part of it, and that's good. So he should. He absolutely should feel part of it. But I think it's hard to read that and not think that it's a come and get me play. I think when sometimes you put in 2 and 2 together and you just get in 4. He doesn't look happy. He doesn't look settled. He doesn't look like he fits in the system. He's just changed his agent, and now he's saying these things. It does. I think it's more of a stretch to say he wants to stay, isn't it? Than all that stuff adds up to say he probably wants to leave. I think he will leave. I think he'll leave in this window. I think we're gonna make a loss on him, and I think it'll be a massive shame because I think he's a really good player, and I think in the right system, under the correct tutelage, and that's what he's talking about, tutelage under Mourinho, someone to get the very best out of him. But he needs support, and he doesn't get any support at West Ham. And this goes back to a problem with Moyes, and this is what I was saying. And Moyes has got his own issues, and this is one of them. And I've always been interested in the dynamic between the ownership and whoever's spending the money, whoever's sanctioning these deals with Vlasic or Scamacca, these players that are clearly not part of our plans, not suited. I just wonder who signs off on this stuff because, excuse me, it's clear for anybody to see that he doesn't fit. And we spent a long time looking for a striker, a long, long time. From the moment he sold Haller, and then David Moyes came out and he said, I've got the money's there now to spend on a player. I have the money for a striker. The owners have given me the money for a striker. That took 18 months. From that point up until signing Scamacca was 18 months. To go all that time and then choose him. I don't mean him to be derogatory. As I say, I think he's a good player. But I mean him in terms of not suiting our style. And it's just a weird one because he turned down by his own admissions. When I said this a couple of weeks ago, somebody said, "Oh, how do you know he turned down Julian Alvarez?" Because he said it in a podcast, a Diary of a CEO podcast, and not my words, it's David Moyes' words. But he turned him down because he didn't think he'd be an improvement, or as he said it, not an improvement. I didn't think we needed him. We had Mikey at the time. We had one striker. He means Mikel Antonio. I find this an odd one. And I said the other day that I think obviously midfield is a priority for us to get sorted in. And when I was talking about centre backs, said, actually, it wouldn't surprise me if actually striker ends up being a priority position for us as well. For a simple reason, I don't feel that Danny Ings has a long-term future at West Ham. I don't feel David Moyes wants to play him. I don't feel David Moyes can incorporate Danny Ings any more than he can incorporate Gianluca Scamacca. It seems like Scamacca's off, or wants to be off. And Antonio was flirting. Antonio, it's hard to make the case that Antonio's happy at West Ham, bearing in mind what he said. It's not theory, it's not supposition, it's Antonio, when he was on those podcasts, looked to be like he was wanting to head out. He's not overly happy with the system either, which I do find odd from Antonio. I get it. Danny Ings and Scamacca, I absolutely get it. They don't thrive under David Moyes. If I was either one of those players, I'd probably feel that I'd been signed under false pretences. But Antonio being unhappy with David Moyes, I'm not so sure about that. I would argue that David Moyes has been the pivotal coach in Antonio's career. And David Moyes made him a Premier League goal scorer and made him a trophy winner. I don't get that. But anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter what I think about that. I think we have a situation where you can make the case for any one of three strikers not being happy at West Ham. For that reason, I think we've got a problem on our hands. I think we've got a striker problem on our hands. And let's be fair, we're finding it hard enough to sign anybody at the moment because of this. Well, I don't think we've made a single bid for anyone. I'd want to make that point. I think the reason we haven't made a single bid for anyone is I think we're waiting on the Declan Rice money. We don't have the Declan Rice money. We'll discuss that tomorrow. Because we've already done 11 minutes. I said about the book, some great winning the book yesterday. I asked for your suggestions on swaps or loans or rumours. I'm sorry, honestly. There were nearly 300 comments yesterday. If I give away 300 books, I would do. I can't. I haven't got the money to do that. But I really appreciate it. And if you just want to go and have a laugh, read some of the comments yesterday that you lot left. Absolutely brilliant. Now, there are actually 3 comments that stood out. One's from Haroon. We were talking about loans and swap deals. We were speaking about me growing a moustache. I pledged to grow a moustache for until West Ham spend £25 million on a player. I'm hoping, and yes, you're right. The guy I was looking for was Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo. That's the guy that I couldn't think of at the time. The actor. A couple of people have said, because I mentioned it, the reason I said that is there are a couple of people who have said we're not going to sign any players this window. I said I think we are, and I'll bet some facial hair on it, and that's what I'm doing. I said I wouldn't be surprised if we spent over 75 million. A couple of people latched onto that comment and said, "What? Only 75 million?" I don't know. It was not an in the know comment. It was just a figure that I plucked out of the air. All right. A couple of people said, "Hold on, if we only spend 75 million." That'll be a bad window. I would agree. All right. It was just a number I plucked out the air when I was thinking of betting and wagers and things like that. So please don't read anything into that at all. Haroon said that maybe I should do a swap deal with my moustache for Danny Ings while he waits for his hair to grow back. And also PJ Bradley had said pretty much the same thing as well, which was Danny Ings will only be a fringe player, which was a play on words, as we know. And Danny Ings had a hair transplant, and all power to her. To be perfectly honest with you, as I think that's a great thing to do. We'll be looking forward to that Barnet growing back, won't we? There was also another one. So actually, I've only got one book there. I'll send one of you a coaster, one of you a book. I guess potluck how it goes into the envelope. The link is in the description below, and how to get in contact with Hammers Chat. Do that. There was one other one which I really, really liked, and I've scrolled through and I couldn't find it. Actually, I liked loads of them. There were loads of really funny ones, and somebody said, I would swap Mikel Arteta for David Moyes just to see Declan Rice's face when he walks into training at Arsenal and sees David Moyes taking the training sessions. I liked it. I thought it was excellent. Very, very good. There's a lot of really, really good comments on there. Anyway, look, we finish up with a little laugh and a little giggle. That was good fun yesterday. Not so much fun today reading this Scamacca stuff. I was going to say the window goes from bad to worse. I don't even feel like the window's got started yet. And without this Declan Rice money, I don't feel the window is going to get started. My hunch with the Gianluca Scamacca stuff is, it feels like he's going to leave. I think if he does, I've got a feeling it happens late in the window, which becomes a massive hindrance to West Ham.